Yes, Trish. 501. Did you hear that? Yes, Don. Yeah, well, we got one right back there. We can take off the wall right there. So yeah, yeah. Or yes. I think Brandon. Hey, Brandon, don't you have a picture, a slide of the future building layout? Okay, just go ahead. No hurry. Just find it while you're sitting there. So yes, we have it. So we'll put it up. Okay. Yeah. So right. Well, let's pray, and then we'll go on from there. Dear Lord, thank you so much for letting us come together, and I thank you for everyone that's here. And I pray that as we, as a body, as a family, as a church, as we talk about where we're going, as we try to see the bumps in the road, Lord, the potholes, where the bridges are out, all the obstacles in our way, that we will remember that you are the one that's in charge of the ship. You are the one that's leading it, and we just want your leading and your guiding in everything we do. Lord, help us to have some good discussion. Help us to be able to share with one another the struggles, the encouragement, just where we see things going. So, Lord, we just ask you for your help in all of this, and we give you the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen. So let me tell you where the idea of a fireside chat came from. First of all, I have had people all along say, hey, can we just have a time where we can sit down and talk and ask questions and all of that? And we've actually been thinking about doing that. The struggle was always, when are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to set it up at? And to be honest with you, some of the stuff we were still trying to think through. The whole idea of where we're going with it, what our plans are with it. And sometimes I am guilty of thinking out loud. Did you guys know that? I think out loud, and usually I talk about what I'm thinking about, and as I'm talking about it, it's neat to get clarity and have some direction from that. So, and it's just my way of communicating with people. As I talk about things, and as we talk about things, we get a better understanding of where we're going with it. So that's kind of where the fireside chat came into. I had several people come to me and said, hey, can we do something to let more people know what's going on? I was fortunate when I came here 21 years ago that we were in a very similar position back then as we are right now. 21 years ago, they had found a place to meet in. They were meeting up on 68, and they had actually bought this land. This land had been purchased and paid for, and at that about the same time, the pastor at the time said, "God's calling me to go to Texas." Wasn't it Texas, Tony, that he went to? And he left, and we were blessed as a church to have a godly deacon by the name of Spooner. Spooner Kendall is his full name, if you wonder. I don't know if Spooner was his first name, but that's what we called him. That's all we ever knew. And he did a great job as a deacon, leading the church, supporting the church with an attitude, hey, I'm here just taking care of this until God calls a person to come, and I was called to come to the church. Well, one of the things that, when I came there, one of the main objectives was to bring the two campuses we had, because at that time we had two campuses, and actually one was the Bible study service at Fox Creek, Fox Creek, not assisted living, the one on Adobe Road there. What was it called? Huh? Yeah, the mobile home park. Yeah, the one that's grown over the years. It's on the side, and we had a service there. So when I first started, we were doing two services, one there in the morning, then we'd have one over on 68. Well, as we went forward with that, the biggest transition was trying to get everybody to come together. And we went through a lot of struggles. We went through a lot of challenges. Some of the challenges we face now are nothing compared to what we went through back then. I mean, we didn't have a permanent home. We were renting our building we were meeting in, and God provided us a way. It was not an easy road. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of people working together to get this building finished and get this done. And it took a lot of people who gave generously, supported the church. We went out and did ask for donations. We did that during the time when the building cost, it was in 2005, 2004, when, if you remember, the prices and the cost per building skyrocketed. Do you remember that? And I think is it dying on me? Yeah. All right. Try that. I would put this in my front pocket just in case.
No, it's still being weird. Not yet. Oh. That part was weird.
All right, go ahead. I get tired of technology. Did you know that?
Sounds better.
That sound better? All right. So we move forward, and at a time when we would have very easily been willing to give up, God got us through, and we actually finished our first building, and we were blessed by it because we ended up that when we finished it, we were debt free. The building was finished, and God just moved us forward. I would not go back and change anything that happened, although I wouldn't want a church to have to go through that to get started or to get its first real home. Well, so as we've gone along over the years, we had about 10 years ago, we said, hey, we need more room. That's when we started building B. And God led a couple people in the church to do that, and we committed to do it debt-free, and it was amazing how everybody just worked together, and that before we knew it, within a couple of years, that building was finished. So we've gone through these times where, as God leads us to make the next step, sometimes there's struggles and difficulties that come with that. And as we grow, the struggle is sometimes we don't always communicate all the things that are going on, or we don't make it clear, and people get frustrated, or they're wondering, okay, Pastor, what are we doing? What's going on with this project? So from talking to several people, I thought the best thing for us to do is just to get together and talk about where we're going with the building. At the same time, we're also at a place where if we're going to grow to the next step, we're going to need an associate pastor. So about 2 years ago, we said, okay, let's start planning for an associate pastor. If you remember Tim Sprinkle, it was about 2 years ago that Tim left. So it's hard to believe it's been that long, but it's almost getting close to 2 years. And he worked part-time, but he still did a lot. He worked 30 hours a week. He did a lot to help and lead things around here. So that was another thing that came up, that people are like, okay, Pastor, where's this at? What are we doing with this? And that also has been very frustrating. Probably one of the most difficult things for a church to do is to hire staff that are going to complement the church, help the church grow, and at the same time just getting them to commit. Because believe it or not a lot of people want to come to Bullhead City. We love Bullhead City. We wouldn't be here if we didn't love Bullhead City. Don't like the summers, but we love Bullhead City, and this is where God's put us. So that was another issue that I felt I wanted to share with you where it was at. We share it with the AST team leadership, but that still was what we wanted to share more. Now, the byproduct of trying to grow and trying to bring on new staff, and one of the struggles we found is all of a sudden we started having some conflict among the leadership. The struggle was a lot of that conflict wasn't brought out until it was brought out in a way that I felt was could have been handled much differently. And you guys remember the letter that was posted in the Beacon. At that point, many people had struggles, and either they weren't talking about them, or they were getting busy gossiping or talking to someone else about them and complaining about them instead of sharing what was going on. So that was another reason we wanted to have this meeting. And and give you a chance to ask questions, but also give you a chance to hear where we're going with those 3 items. And so I'd like to start, if that's okay with you, start with the whole issue about the building. And I've said this to a few people, and I'll share it again. This is a beautiful building. I love where we're at. I've invested my life in it. I spent 20 years here. I can remember putting up tiles. I can remember knocking out walls. I can remember poorly putting down tile in one of the bathrooms. I can go over a whole list of things that I've done to help the build. I mean, I can remember pouring concrete out there with the concrete guys, helping them pour concrete, because I was here and I was working and I was doing what I could to build it. But our struggle has always been, and right now you might think, well, Pastor, we don't need a bigger building. We're barely filling it up as it is right now. And the struggle is, it's during the summer, there are times when we have about 100, 110 on Sunday morning. And then on Saturday night, we go anywhere from 30 to 50 to 60 people on Saturday night. That's the average service. When the winter comes, that goes up by a good 20%. We actually have some Sunday mornings where it's very difficult to find a place. The problem is we're in the middle of summer and we don't always see that. All we see is all the empty seats and we think, why are we doing this? So my premise is this. We will never grow as a church beyond the one building that we meet in for worship. So I don't know how some of you would agree with that or disagree with that, but our struggle is we tried to do 2 worship services before on Sunday, and that didn't work really well. A lot like Saturday night. I don't know how many of you come on Saturday night, but the Saturday night service is very different from the Sunday morning service. It's a very special service. It's a neat service. We enjoy the way we do it, but we realize they're different. And even to the point where if someone is coming to the Saturday night service and all of a sudden stops attending, many of you don't even know that because you don't know who they are. Whereas Saturday night would know that, and vice versa for Sunday as well. So we have been going through this building process for about 2 years. And if you remember, about 2 years ago, we said we believe it's time for us to look forward to the next place where we're going to house Desert Shores Community Baptist Church. And at that point, we began looking for land. And we actually had a lot that we put a bid on, got turned down by God's hand, because it turned out that it was twice as much as the property we ended up purchasing, and we probably wouldn't have been that happy with it as time went on anyways. So God provided a place that was well below market that God provided for us to have, and we were able to actually buy and purchase the place debt-free. It was a place that would have no homeowners association. It was a place that fit our bill for all the things we needed to grow for the next 20 to 30 years. Because I have to look beyond myself, so that's where we were looking. So, and I'll give you a second. I just want to finish the. So we went ahead and we as a church agreed and purchased that property, and we own that property. And at that point, we waited until we had enough money to begin the next step. And if you remember, about a year ago, was it a year ago, Elon? About a year ago, we presented a step plan where we're going to start grading it first, bringing utilities and all those steps that we're taking to get the land ready so we can actually put a building on it. And we started raising money for that. Matter of fact, I think we raised at that time about $150,000 initially for that part of it. Correct, Janie? About $150,000. Of that $150,000, I think we've only spent like $51,000. So here we're expecting more, and so God provided that, and at the same time we were looking at the next step of the grading, not sure how much that was going to cost, expecting a couple $100,000 for that, and God worked it out that we had made an agreement with the landowner next to us, and we were able to get the land rough graded, and now it sits there ready for the next step. So at that point, we say as a church, God's working in that to provide a way to move forward with that. And then if you remember, I said, okay, I realize I need to start praying, being more specific about what God is going to do next on the building. And I said, we need a building. We need to raise funds for the building. And at this point, we have enough funds in the general fund to actually go and build, to purchase a metal building for the site. But the issue we decided as we talked about it, and this is all what I want you to know, is we realized that maybe we needed to scale down the size of that first building and make it so that we could just build a smaller size building and add on to it. Because we were talking, that building up there is about 25,000 square feet. 25.9 is what it says. And we thought that would be the size to house a gym, multi-purpose room, a worship center that would worship anywhere from 600 to 800, I think is what we figured, and then also classrooms and offices and all that. So at that point, we realized maybe we need to scale back and change how we're doing this and do that building in phases as well. So that's kind of where we're at with the building. We still have a few things we need to do. As a matter of fact, one of the questions was, when are we going to get a sign on the property? And we need to do that. We know that. We were waiting till the rough grading got done so we could put it and would be there for however long it needed to be. So yes, Don.
Okay, one of the things about the sign.
Oh, let me give you the mic so everybody can hear you. Because we just want everybody to be able to hear, that's all.
That's fine. One of the things about the sign that I come from Fort Mojave, okay, and there's a big hill below you. You go down and you come up. Well, as you come up, you cannot help but see our property, one section.
Right.
And it's not the paved part, it's in the rough part. But my thought is we need to put up a sign up there like maybe John 15, for God so loved the world he gave his.
Right.
3:15, I think it is.
3:16, yeah.
3:15. Anyway, but anyway, that would people when they drive up, they have no choice. If they're looking at the road, they're seeing that sign, and to me that we're supposed to spread the word, and that's one way that we could spread the word very reasonably, very inexpensively.
Right.
It doesn't have to be billboard. It could be maybe 2 4x8 signs or something like that. Something like that would, and we could also put in, some information like maybe where to call,
Right.
to call here, and maybe future, possible future home or something like that.
Well, right now we have a thing where it says Future Home Desert Shores Community Baptist Church. So we want them to know that there's a church that's going to be on that site. And we are doing that. We hadn't thought about any kind of a sign or anything with scripture on it.
People don't realize it, but see, I drive it twice a week for Bible study, and then I drive it to come to church, and we drive it constantly. And that is a shortcut that everyone, all the locals know.
Everybody takes that
and
road.
There's like thousands of people that drive that every day, and it would be a great place to put just a sign, to get the word out. I mean.
Yeah. So we want it. We have plans to do that. We just haven't done that because we were waiting for that. But we also realize. And I'm not making an excuse for Bullhead City, but in Bullhead City, it's tough sometimes to get companies to get that done, and you can contact them, and so. But that is one of the things we have that we need to finish right now to get on the site, right, Elin?
Do you know where I'm talking about? Where you come up the hill?
Oh yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You see the property. Right?
Yeah, that's the spot that we want it on. Yeah, that's where we're planning. We're actually planning. If you look up on the thing there, see where it has the little X. Or, I'm sorry, see where it has the X where it says monument? That's right where Don's talking about, that we want that sign. So we are going to put a sign there. We're actually looking down the road of making a cross and making,
That's not where I was talking about.
Where are you talking about, Don?
I think where I'm talking about where it says future development.
Oh, over on that side.
I could show it to you sometime if you want. We could drive up there and you could
Okay,
see.
well, the initial thing on future site of a future home of Desert Shores Community Baptist Church, we're talking about putting where that little X is, so that people can know that this is going to, because that's right there where the road is. That's where they drive up and down the road. The first thing they're going to see.
No, it's not where I'm talking about, though. But
Okay.
it's not where I'm talking about. But I could show you what I'm talking about because I drive it every day and I think about it. Every time I drive past it, I think, wow, if we had God's word there,
Right.
you could not avoid it.
Now here's the neat thing is, I think it'd be neat to have a Bible verse or something there. I could see that being a separate thing would be neat to do that. But we can talk about that, and I know Elon's working on the sign for the future home of, but I think Scripture is a different thing just to let people know. So maybe we can do both.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think it would be that expensive to do that. I mean, it
It's
does
about
not have to
1,000
be a billboard or anything.
We're
It
doing.
could
We're
be-
going to be do two 4x8 sheets of plywood with vinyl lettering on them, and it's going to be basically angled like that, and it's going to be at that one point, and we're looking at about $900 for the sign.
Yeah.
And that's for them to put it up and everything.
Yeah, well, I would.
So
say
we've got the ability
yeah,
to do that.
Okay.
But I like the idea of putting something bigger on that one slope, because there is a place for that. We have to consider that. So, talking about the building, someone else, let me, who had their hand up first? Okay, all right. Got to be fair.
I just had a couple of questions. Is that Aero Vista, is that on the street where the fire department is?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And how big is that land, the property?
It's 13 acres, and the 13 acres, if you look at that picture up there, the gully that's there, where it shows the lines going across, that's the gully that's in front of it.
Oh, a
There's
gully.
about 7 or 8 workable acres
So
of
you
land.
can really tell what it is when you drive up there? 'Cause
Yes, yes.
Diane wanted to know where it was, and I thought, well, if I take her there, will I be able to
Yes.
recognize it then?
Yeah, you will.
without a
And you'll
sign?
know it because there's a big pile of rocks at the top of the hill there. If you're driving, you see like a big pile of boulders. I've got plans on those boulders. I just got to get up there and get them. Anyways, but, and that's part of the land where they've actually leveled it. So, yeah. And it's a great site. It really is a prime site for us to have.
How big will the initial building be? You're saying parts, you're building it in parts. How big will the initial building be?
Okay, good. So we're looking at an initial building of about 15,000 square feet. And that will be, what we're looking at is we're looking at having a worship area about 100 by 100, and then on the outside of the front of the building, a lobby and rooms or classrooms or of about 5,000 square feet, which one of our biggest struggles here is our lobby is never big enough. I remember when we built this place, remember how big we thought the lobby was, Tony? Remember how big we thought it was? I remember how, oh man, this is a great lobby. Look how big it is. Now I walk in the lobby and I think, man, this is a small lobby. How do we get around in here? So part of what we're doing is if you could imagine that building and taking just the front third of it and then putting 100 by 50 or no 100 by 20 all around the one edge for classrooms and for an office, for nursery, all those things, and then the worship would be inside the main area.
And how many worshipers are we planning on?
We are planning on, what are we doing the calcs for on the worship? 600.
Oh, excellent,
Yes.
excellent. Okay.
So that would allow us to meet all together for worship, so it wouldn't be separated.
Love it.
All right. I'll get you right next, Susan. Go ahead. Go ahead, Linda. You had your
I
hand
just
up.
wanted to know, you said you used to have 2 services on Sunday, and it didn't work. Can you tell me why?
We had services on Sunday, 2 services on Sunday. This was probably, who was here when we did it? Tony, what, it was 8 years ago? When we had 2 services on Sunday morning. Right, but that was like 8 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
Why does that work over 7?
Yeah.
Never had 2 of them.
So yeah, so we were doing that, and then the summer came and it died off, and we didn't start it again when the fall came. Yeah. Because we had a few people come for what happened is we found it was very difficult for the worship team and the people to do both every Sunday. And the nice part, the message got to where I had to keep it real short because you had to do that because you had only so much time. But what happened is we found that the people who are doing all the volunteer work, singing with the choir, doing the instruments, they felt the burden the biggest, the largest burden of it. And it was difficult for them. So Susan had it next.
Dear God. Oh, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about a metal building? And then Tim has a question.
Oh, okay, all right. What we're looking at is we are in an area where it has to be a stick-built building, which means that it can't be a modular home, it can't be a mobile home, it can't be anything like that. Metal buildings qualify, but we're still going to have to go to the city and get approved for the metal building. But we found that metal buildings just can span a greater area. They're not as expensive to build. So that's why we're looking at a metal building for that actual initial structure. And the other thing is we're looking at a metal building because this building is such that if we had more acreage to go back, we could take this wall out and go back. The problem is with this site is if we did that, we don't have enough parking for whatever we would expand it to. So what was Tim's question?
Tim's question is, what is going to happen to this church?
Oh, okay. So that's a question everybody asks is what's going to happen to this church. So let me talk about that real briefly. What we envision for this current site is whatever God leads us to do. And I don't know how to answer that any other better way than that. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm meeting with Chad Garrison, who's the pastor of Calvary Lake Havasu. And they have a very large church. Matter of fact, I think they have like 2,100 on a Sunday and Saturday night. So they do 3 services, and it's a large church. But they had the same problem about 15 years ago, and they actually had a site that they were looking that they actually had that housed about 200, 300 people, and they realized that they're having two or three services, another site service. So they actually bought a 10-acre parcel off of Highway 95 in Lake Havasu, and they built on there. But as they were building, they realized they had to keep some of the services at the other site. So what we want to do is basically figuring out what it would cost to run this as a second site, do what we can to use this facility for whatever kind of services or ministry we can do. It would be neat to have this site as a place for ministry. Our biggest question is that ministry has to support itself. We have to be able to pay what it costs to function to run all these buildings. Because, it's anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month to run everything that goes on here for utilities and all that. So did that answer Tim's question? So here's my point is we are not locked in to anything that we have to do on this property. This church owns this property debt-free, and the only issue with this property is going to be, first of all, trying to sell it as a church, because not a lot of people want to buy an old church. Now, it might sound like, say, old church. I don't mean to call it old, but a building that's a church. So it's a lot harder to sell them. Correct, Sandy? Isn't it a little bit more difficult market for churches?
Well, yeah, because there's specific reasons.
Yeah.
There's, the primary reason for this, you could sell it as a church, but you could also sell it as a school.
School,
or
daycare, yeah,
preschool,
yeah.
But also, because it has a homeowners association, you have to get permission from the homeowners association for whatever the person that's buying it
Right.
is going to use it.
Right. So it's a little more complicated to sell this place. And if we sold it, we would never get the money out of it. I see it and when I talked to Chad Garrison, the pastor, one of the reasons why they did not sell their original campus is they realized they would never get the value out of it if they just sold it. So that's our dilemma with this place. It's not that we want to leave this place. It's not that we can't still have a service here. But if we do that, we have to be able to logistically do it. And that's where that step might be something we can't figure out right now until we actually get there and see what we could do. We could lease it out, whatever, there's options. Because it is a great site. It's got a lot of options, a lot of stuff. We talked to the school about being interested in buying it. They don't want to expand their footprint anymore. They're done. So we just got to go from there. Let me get Don. Oh, I'm sorry, Bert has the mic. So go ahead, Bert.
Okay, this pertains to this current building to take it in consideration the size of our congregation. If we make the move, get the new building built, as far as this building, have we taken into consideration the expense of keeping up two properties, and would we be better off in leaning towards something here that would bring in an income?
So the answer is yes, possibly. So when I tell you we are wide open on our options, I am very serious about that. I say this, I feel bad to say it, you know, I would love to say we're going to keep a regular traditional service here and keep everything just the way it is. But I have to be honest, if I told you that, I wouldn't be for sure of that, because we just don't know what's going to happen when we get to the new site. The whole purpose of moving to the new site is to reach out to a whole new demographic, a whole new group of people, and try to bring the younger people into the church by being in an area where we have room for youth, junior high activities, all that. Right now, if we wanted to have a junior high activity, it would have to be on a non-other day activity, and it would have to be either held in here or in the fellowship hall. And of course, both those places, if you use them, means you got to take them things down and rearrange it. It's possible, but that's a lot of, that's why we looked at the expansion, is we realized if we really want to reach all the people we're talking about, we have to find more ways to do it. Because we're doing a good job reaching the seniors right now. We are doing a good job. We can do a lot of that right now where we're at, but I've heard everyone here say we've got to keep reaching the young people or else we're just going to die out. And we all know that. So we got to find a way to reach out to them, and that's it. Yes, Linda's up here.
Actually, you have some online questions, Pastor?
Oh, we have an online question? Okay.
So,
We'll get you next, Linda.
You've touched upon a couple of these, but it's actually a four-part. What's the size of the building, associated cost, probable construction schedule, and this is probably one that's on a lot of people's minds, possible negative impact to current church activity.
Okay, all right. So 15,000 square feet, what we're looking at, 600 for worship. The construction cost, I think it's how much per square feet?
We spoke to, we've reached out. We began looking into, unless they can't hear me. Because we got the sites mass graded, we've got the utility drawings. The only thing that's still kind of up in the air is whether we're going to go sewer or septic, which will be resolved quickly. But anyway, we started reaching out and talking to some of these building companies, because when we started out, we were looking at $45 to $50 a foot just to put up to have the building dumped on the site. We still got to put it up. We spoke to an outfit out of Texas, and they said $15 to $17 a foot dumped on our site. George has got some experience with erecting this stuff, and you're thinking about $6 to $7.
Right, it was $7 a square foot for the concrete, I think, and then I think about, I don't know how much it was for the erection. I know how much the total was. I'd have to do the math in my head. But
yeah. So now you made me lose my train of thought. But okay, and you have to be mindful, of course, that these numbers, we still have to put air conditioning in them. We have to put, the interior stuff. We have to do all of the stuff on the inside of the building. But I think that we figured about, let's see, about 30, 40 to somewhere around $200,000 to get the building.
to purchase the metal building, about
Yeah.
$200,000.
Right.
Just to
Right.
purchase the building.
Just to do that.
Yeah, just for the, yeah. It's an actual metal building that we have somebody put up for us.
I know, that's why I'm asking. The building next door is metal.
This one's metal
This
too.
building here is metal.
This is the metal building too, yeah. Yeah, and you're in the metal building. The only difference is they made us stucco it, just like they made us stucco that building.
Can you get that out here?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I know someone in California, a gentleman friend of mine that sells metal buildings.
Yeah.
So if you have any problems.
Well, let Elon get your gentleman's name and go from there. We always want a gentlemanly discount. We don't find out. What?
I can find out.
Yeah, Elon. Yeah, talk to Elon. Now he had the third. Okay, so the schedule is to let you know. Right now we are arguing, debating, discussing with the architect, because we had to pay the architect to do the site plan and do our utility part. So we are still working to get them, because we have some big issues with whether we're doing sewer or septic, because of where it's at. There's no other sewer systems next to it. It's really expensive to do sewer and have to bring it all the way up a road. A quarter of a mile would be a very large expense. So we're fighting with them on that, and we're figuring out where the water and electricity is going to come through. So once that's resolved, we're hoping that's going to be resolved within the next, by sometime the end of September. And I'm just being generous with time, but hopefully by the end of September, we have an idea what we're going to do. And then at that point, we will actually go out and bid to get that done, because we have the money to put the utilities on the property, and that's the next step that we're going to do. So hopefully sometime in the next couple of months, that's actually going to be put into place and done, correct?
Absolutely. The utility drawing has been drawn, absent the sewer or the septic. And I talked to the architect, what day is today? Today's Sunday. That would have been Friday. And see, we originally were supposed to partner with these folks that are adjacent to us, the ones down at the bottom of the hill, as far as the sewer and all that. Well, they're the ones that they're getting kind of jammed up on the sewer. Mm-hmm. And so we have told the architect, and I told him again on Friday, we need to move ahead with this, and we need to move ahead with a septic tank unless someone comes across with the plan that's acceptable. Right now, it's not. So I believe that within the next week or 10 days, we'll have a utility drawing that we can present to the city. That's the next step. You have to have a drawing that you give to the city that they approve or say, yes, you can, or no, you can't.
And it could take them a month to review that. There's no limit on
yeah,
how long
we have no control over that.
Yeah. So the last question, part of it was?
The negative impact on current church activity.
Okay, so that's a great question. I see the reality is there doesn't have to be any impact on what we're doing right now. I see no reason why what we're doing over there should hinder anything we're doing here. I'm trying to, we've got a couple people in the church working on like Elon's doing all the fun stuff with the drawings and the architect and all that. So I'm not having to mess with anything on the site, other than I'm curious and I'm like you, I want to know what's going on, so when I can go with Elon, I go with Elon on that. But there should be no impact on what we're currently doing. We should continue doing everything we're doing. Financially, there's no impact. We're not stopping anything we're doing. Time-wise, it doesn't interfere with any of it. Now, once we get to the point where we actually have a building to move into, then we can look at some of the impacts then. But really, the impact at that point is going to be figuring out where we're going to house the office, all that, and those details will come out clear as we're going through it. Does that answer that question fairly decent?
I asked him.
Okay, all right. So, Sierra, I knew that. My brain's fried. That's okay. Sierra.
So with the question, what would be the negative impact? And I'm looking at it from a completely different standpoint, because one of the missions is to bring in the youth. And I hope no one gets offended by this, but all we seem to keep talking about are the trivial things, how big the building will be, what will be there, the signs. But the main focus during this discussion should be, how can we bring in the youth now? Because as me being a youth myself, this area right here is somewhere I can still reach. We have to think about the youth that don't have transportation. How are they going to get up there? And you know how Pastor George has been talking about we all need to participate more. We need to go out where the youth are, meet them where they are. A lot of the youth are in the libraries. A lot of the youth are at MCC. A lot of the youth are right next door to us. So how are we coming down on their level to communicate with them and let them know, not even from a religious standpoint, but there's someone that cares about you. I want to know what resources that you need. I want to know how I can better serve you, because yes, everyone wants a big, pretty building and all these nice things, but it's like the saying, a house is not a home if no one is there. And we're supposed to build God up. We are the church. So it wouldn't matter if we were back like in olden days in tents and tabernacles. If we're not going to meet people where they are like Jesus did, all that doesn't matter. The money, all that is so trivial. We need to get out and get active. No one is too old. No one is too young. Every specific person in this body of Christ has their specific anointing and the gifts that God gave them for a reason. So if we're not using that and just focusing on, you know, the financials, we're missing the point of the whole mission. And, you know, like God says, if I gave you the dream, if I gave you the vision, don't worry about the funds. They will come. You know, because it's people like me, been through so much in my life and grew up in the church, but never learned that the four walls isn't the church. We are the church. And I just started my walk with God 2 years ago. And I used to think people that went to church often and prayed often were better than me. And I was unsuccessful because they perceived to be more successful by the tangible things they had on the outside, when really they were hurting just like me on the inside, but they just put on a different face. And in the short amount of time of me really growing my relationship with God, in just a short span of 2 years, I have accelerated beyond measures. Yes, there are still trying times and struggles, but I would do it all over again the same way, just to be in awe of God every day how I am now. And I noticed between this whole tri-state area, everyone is really friendly. It feels warm and loving, but at the same time, everybody's hearts are so closed off out of fear, out of wanting to keep things they feel like they worked hard for themselves. And there is a huge lack in communication from everybody. You know, I keep hearing that. Yes, everybody is warm and they perceive themselves to be opening and, you know, willing to help out, but there's no real unity in this community. So our main focus is to bring the unity back in community, you know, and that starts with us taking it back old school, going outside to the tents and tabernacle days, you know, letting people know that, yes, I know trust still has to be built, but we need to focus on it being a round table discussion. You know, this is supposed to be an anointed circle, not multiple circles everywhere, but one, because it says when 2 or 3 are gathered, God is supposed to be in the midst. But if we keep dividing ourselves and not coming together, loving your neighbor and letting them know, like, look, what resources do you need? What resources do you need? I have this already established. You have this already established, so let's come together. For example, I'm a den leader with the Cub Scouts. And, you know, when I had a new baby, my son was really struggling that he wasn't getting all the attention. He cut his hair off, cut his eyelashes off, did the most. And, you know, I was praying like, God, I need something. Just like I need people, my son needs people. He needs fellowship for his age. And that's when the pack got established. And slowly over time, we just accumulated such a diverse group of kids from all different disabilities and races and different backgrounds, some being immigrants, some living in Laughlin all their lives. And when I tell you the change I seen in those kids coming together as a community, it's like we have to go back to that childlike faith that they have. You know, being willing to come together despite our differences and just learn how to function as a body, as a whole again, you know? And within that time, you know, I grew more invested. This is before I became a den leader. You know, I may not have had much to give, but I would bring them snacks and drinks and different things like that. Because before, the parents used to just treat it like it was a daycare. But over the time, as they seen I became more invested, and remember, I just got home with a brand new baby. Had an emergency C-section, I have epilepsy, I didn't have a car, but I would still make it there for my son despite all of that because I seen the change in him. And one of the main things we focus on with our PAC is knowing and learning how to do your duty to God. No matter what religion our kids are from, the main focus is we all have one common goal, to do our duty to God and become outstanding citizens and to please Him. So I say all this to say we should really shift the topic of discussion and figure out what is the mission again. I hear the vision so loudly in this room, but the vision without the mission already being in effect has no purpose, because if we can't even get them here, what makes you think we can get them there? We have to be better shepherds of our sheep, because the kids out here, I've seen them, and they are lost. There is nothing for them to do. So we need to go back in the schools. We need to go back and just take over the land. God gave us this land for a reason. This land is flowing with milk and honey. So we need to go get what God set out for us. No matter what, no matter how hard, come together. But that's all I have to say for now.
All right, thank you, Sierra. I'm glad you didn't have much to say. No, you had a lot to say, and it goes back to this idea that even though we might say we would be limited or it would be difficult, we still have to find ways to start reaching the young people, and we still need to find ways to minister to the kids. We're doing the Joy After School program. That's one thing we do with the kids. We do need to keep growing that and realize just because we want kids, it's not going to happen just because we have a bigger building. It's got to be a change in our attitude and the way we look at things and how we're reaching out. So I appreciate that. And here's the neat thing is, Sierra has said that, and my hope is that she's going to be part of coming in and saying, how can I help to do this? Because that's always where it starts. I agree 100%. We've got to not look at just a building to solve it. It's got to be the people in the church that say, I'm going to get involved with this. I'm going to help where I can. I hope you realize as a member, if you have an idea of how we can do ministry to reach somebody, if you have that idea and we can work a way to support that ministry, we're going to do that. We just got to say, this is what we want to do. But once again, we can't do it if we don't have the people to do it. And that's where the people with the vision come into place, as well as setting that mission. So, but thank you, Sierra. Yes, Linda.
I just wanted to know, do you have a tentative projected completion date?
Oh, no. No, because we haven't gotten to the point where we can set a date like that.
I mean, 2 years, 3 years?
I would hope that in 2 years we're going to actually have a building up that we can say we're doing the finals on, doing the sprinkler system, doing the interior. There's a lot of things with this building we're not going to do.
This year's almost gone.
Right, yeah. I mean, but like some of the building, we're not going to put carpet in the building. We'll probably make it, we'll probably make it that, do something so that we don't have to worry about, but we'll have to do things to cover the sound and all that. So all of those things are next down the road, but we can't do anywhere until we get a building, and then we can start working. This building right here took us about 2 years to complete, Tony, 2.5 years? 2.5 years to complete this building. And that was from the time we broke ground until we got it done. And that's with our money being taken from us by the bond company that did the Ponzi scheme, and us continuing to raise money and all that. But God got us through that. So, and then we finished with a $375,000 building that was finished. But we can't stop doing ministry at the same time, and I think that's a good point. Yes, Don?
I've got two quick points. Number one is that area, I've been led by God that, that I feel I've been prayed about it and stuff, and God says that is a ripe area there. And one of the things that I wanted to say is that Halloween, there was probably at least 2,000 kids in that area.
Right.
I mean, Pat drove through it, and she couldn't believe how many kids were there. So, I mean, it's a ripe field for having youth ministry and such there.
No, it is, absolutely. What's the other point? You had two, you said.
Yeah, and my other point was we had talked about having a sunrise service there. And I kind of think that it would be great if we could have something there, even if it's just a one-day event for people to come and maybe get together, have a barbecue, something. I just for the church,
Well, my hope is this next sunrise service we're going to have it on the land. That's my hope. So. And I think we're going to be able to do that. But absolutely. So anything else on the building? The square footage of these two buildings together is 10,200 feet.
So you're only adding 5,000 more feet?
Initial.
Yes, correct. Yes. We're only adding 5,000 more feet. Yes. And the reason is, Tony, is the nice thing about where we're adding it is we're making it so that our worship area is going to be big enough to house, so we can grow we can make the step of growing from 200 to 300 with no problem. We can go to 300 to 600 with no problem before we have to.
Any polling in this area down there to the people down there that if this church would suddenly appear that they're all going to start going to that church?
No, the biggest projections. No, we haven't. Yeah, I think we did something like that up here. But in that area, the projections are for apartment houses. One of the things that Sierra mentioned was the idea of the community college. The community college is going to start growing, and I would love to see us have someone connected with the community college to actually be part of the Christian College Association, or Christian clubs. They have Christian clubs that they have in the community college. So that's the next area, and that area is projected to grow with a lot of housing in the next 5 years. The housing itself is going to explode, and it's going to be a lot of multi-family homes or multi-family apartments, and that's going to be a large.
I'm kind of concerned because I look at that because I have a lot of friends in the Catholic Church, and when they built that big building, they cannot maintain it, and they got more people on their services than we have, and they had to go back to the diocese. They have to fork out money every month for them to make their payments. So I'm concerned about us building this huge building. Are we going to be able to maintain it?
And that's what I like what you said.
Pay all of the bills, the staff that we have now, where we started out, we only had you as a paid pastor. We didn't pay anybody else. Now there's what, 8, 10 people that we pay?
5.
So, and the electricity's gonna go up, the air conditioning, all that stuff's gonna be a lot more than what we're paying here. So will we have the finances, once it's built, to continue?
Right. Well, and
without having to worry,
And-
paycheck to paycheck?
right, and one of the reasons why we want to build the building debt-free is because that would allow us the ability to do that. Because one of the things you noticed, and Tony, you've been here since I started. When I first started here, I think our yearly budget was about 50 or 60,000, something like that. I'm not sure, but around there. And now our budget, huh? No, but so now our budget is about 300,000 or 330,000 a year, and we're meeting that budget. But you're right. I think we do need to be aware of what's going on. But the best way we can cover our expenses is to make sure that we go into it having as much of our debts paid, so we don't have to worry about that. Because that's kind of what we've been thinking about. But the area is projected to grow. If the area grows like it's supposed to, that's going to be one of the key areas of growth in Bullhead City, is up on that parkway. But it's really a step of faith. Just like in here, we really didn't know how many people were going to grow in here. We didn't know what was going to happen with Talon Point. We're still waiting for those apartments, the houses there to finish. So there was a lot of things. We thought this road was going to go through to Landon Drive. If you remember that, about 15 years ago, they said that road was going to go through. So I think there's only so many plans you can make with some of that stuff. So and that's tough. But Janie had her hand up next. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. I didn't see you pass that. Yeah, they can't hear online if you don't talk in the microphone. That's why we're doing that.
I'm just curious if phase one is going to have the kitchen at the new site, or are we still going to do fellowship activities here? How are we going to, because the kitchen's costly.
Well, the kitchen is an expensive part of it, so we are looking at what it would cost to just have the kitchen included over there initially. Because we would have plenty of room to meet, but we wouldn't have a kitchen to cook out of. So that's something we're looking at adding into the initial build over there, is the actual kitchen. So, but we still have this one here that functions just fine. We just will have to use it. Let me get Pat first, and then.
Pat
I guess it's all right. Go ahead, Trish. Go ahead, Trish. You got the mic.
In the plans for the building, have you considered making it solar powered?
No, we haven't got to that point yet.
That would be good. That would cut down thousands of dollars a month.
While we got the mic here, you know, Pastor, the lady back there was talking
Sierra.
about a plan about the youth and things like that. Well, right now we're looking for a youth pastor, so to speak, to come here. And in the plans, that youth pastor we're looking for a young man, and we're looking for someone who's going to concentrate on building a youth department, someone that'd be going to the schools and hopefully build a youth department and grow this church, you know, between now and the time we'd even build a church over there. So that I think that's our mission right now and our plans, if that's accurate.
Well, I want to talk more about that in just a minute. Let me get Pat to finish her question, and then.
Hi. Actually, just a couple comments. Number one is I've been taking pictures over there, so if anybody wants to see them on my phone, you can while I'm here. But the growth over there is really going to be big. The new apartment building is going to be going in shortly, and they've already got their signage up saying they're going to be there. Plus, I think there's another one that's going to be going up across the street. Plus, there's two huge communities right there. So we'll have an opportunity of people coming over to the new building. Not that many of us are willing to travel as far as we do.
Right.
And so it'll be nice to have both buildings. The one thing I just got to say, that I have this wonderful thought and idea that as time goes, start out with both churches going, and then as time goes on, turn this into a school. And what I would like to see is something for short, like high school. Just as the kids are starting to go opposite directions, try to keep them on track. It would have to be a small school, make it a Christian school. And that would be so fabulous to be able to have within this building, should everything start to slow down here and continue to grow over there.
Well,
and I know it's future, but the future starts with the present.
And those are all ideas that makes good sense to do that, because you're right. We could have this. We could turn this into a youth facility, and you could have all kinds of crazy youth stuff going on here and do that. But I think our dilemma is, and I'm going to go back to my original premise. we have grown here to the point where once things get reset and we get through this struggle we're having with this new building program and trying to figure out how we're doing it and making sure people feel comfortable with what we're doing with it, once that reset happens and once people see that, we're going to continue to grow and we're going to have a point where this place will not meet the needs we have. So for future needs, that's the whole purpose of doing the new building. Tony's right. We need to know when we're going to reach out to. We need to know about advertising. We need to do all that stuff. But at the same time, just from what they're projecting, that's going to be a major growth area. The new bridge is going to be right next to there. There's all these things that are happening. But to get back to Sierra's comment, it's not going to do any good if we don't, as members of the church, say, okay, how can we start something now? What can we do with that? So before I transition to the next one, any more questions on the building? Yes, Patrick.
So there's some comments online. To go back to the initial questions that were asked regarding the four-part, the answers were not complete. He's an engineer that's seen more projects go beyond budget than meet budget. The project has a fuzzy scope, so the cost is problematic. So, and what I am interpreting is, you say we have about a $330,000 current budget. Now, is that for the completed, or is that just for the building itself?
Okay, so the person online, whoever that is, to let you know, I see you, here's what we're doing with that. You're asking me where we're at in the process. And we have been blessed by God taking care of the money aspect of it so that once we get certain things done, we will get those things completed. We just haven't done them yet because we haven't gotten our engineering plans from the architect to submit to the city. We have the ability to pay for that and bringing utilities on the site and doing the ordering of a building that will fit the size that we have. We have the ability with the money we currently possess as a church to do all of that. Okay? So when it comes for a budget for the next part of it, you're right. That is difficult. We anticipate about $120,000 for concrete work. We anticipate about, I think, $80,000 or $90,000 for them to put the building up. So those are all costs that are down the road that we are going to be fundraising for and raising money for to do that as we go along, because we've committed to doing this building so that, like Tony says, we don't get ourselves invested beyond what we can afford. Next thing you know, we're having to sell what we did. There was a church in Lake Havasu Baptist Church that ended up doing a bond, and they ended up losing their site because they couldn't afford to pay the bond. I don't want us to do that. So we're going to do that. But that's where it's fuzzy, is we don't have all those details on some of those other aspects of it, other than a rough estimate of like $1.5 million for the whole project. Did that answer that question well enough?
I'm sure he'll let us know.
Okay, let us know if there's more to that. Okay, any other questions on the building? Yes, Tony.
But
Is there a drawing of the inside of the building?
no, we haven't. This is just a site plan, so we haven't done anything on the inside of the building.
But, sorry.
I'm sorry, yes.
So again, it's, I'm reading back through the notes, sorry. And like Sierra said, the focus is not the church, like it's not the building. The focus is the body of Christ followers that's going to be filling that church, that's going to be out seeking to make disciples, that's going to be out there getting the youth, getting people involved to for us to share the gospel with. And that's the bottom line. The building is just a building. Granted, we need funds and resources to make the building, but we also need the same resources to, have the people to go out and get the youth and get the church body full again.
Right, and that's going to be our struggle to do that. But Tony, so here's what we're doing at this point is we are just getting some basic parameters for what we want to be able to do with the building. We haven't set any ideas on how we're going to divide up that 15,000 square feet between a kitchen, nursery, children's department. We haven't done that yet. All we,
The problem we had with this one, because that says not, it was
correct, yes. Now, here's the neat thing is, I've been through 2 buildings so far, so I have a pretty good idea of what we want to do. We are not going to build a small lobby again. We're going to build a large lobby where people can come in, and we have several doors and all that. So all those things are the logistics that we're going to do. So we are taking them into mind. When we get ready to get to that step, if you want to be on that team, you want to help, just talk to myself or Elin, and we'll do the best we can to give you a voice in that meeting. Right now, we haven't even gotten there yet, because that's the struggle. The last year has been spent trying to get people to understand why we need to consider moving forward. Because we could be content as a church to stay here. But I would be guarantee you that 10 years from now, there's not going to be much of us left. Because that's just the nature of the beast, the way those things go. So yes. Boy, Don, another question. This guy's got a lot of questions. No, that's right.
We need to have faith in God. God will provide. God will provide for us. I feel sure that, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that God will provide for us. He will direct us. He will guide us, and we need to have faith in that.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, God, this is something that God wants. I know.
And even more so as we move forward, as we do the things that God puts before us, and that's going to be the key. But once again, that means we got to keep asking ourselves, how can we reach out to the youth? If there's some way we can do it, I want to hear it. We can try it. We'll see what we can figure out. We're doing a good job reaching the seniors, but that's not enough. We need to do more than that. Yes, Sierra.
I don't know if that's the proper discussion for this setting, but will the meeting next Tuesday, will we be discussing new outreach and program developments, or is that something we would talk about here?
She's talking about the children's workers meeting. So yes, that's the forum where we would talk about things we want to try to plan on doing. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And also, I know we're talking about construction of the new building, but as far as this building goes, a major part when it comes from a parental point of view, have we thought about supplying housing? Because that is also another way where we could get funds through grants and different things if we provide housing for families and different stuff like that. Because from my experience, when it was just me and Anthony, I was going through a domestic violence situation. A major reason why I stopped going to church was due to a lack of housing. And that's also a way that we could keep up with the cleaning and other things that are necessary to keep a church functioning, is by providing people with the resources they need, and also by them being a part of that program, make that some of the requirements. You have to clean the church, help out in the kitchen, different stuff, because not only does that help them to rehabilitate back into an environment in which they can trust people and build trust, but that also helps them to see that, everyone isn't the same, by my experience in going through various programs and stuff like that. So, there's also people at MCC, a ton of people I spoke to, and like how you were mentioning the Chi Sigma Christian Club, I will be the leader of that. I was talking to Dean Cooper about that. So one of the main things that I've experienced through MCC is that a lot of the people that work there had such a good experience there because of all the different programs and opportunities that were made available to them, which in turn made them want to invest more and come back to work for MCC despite of all the major degrees they've obtained and stuff. And you know how MCC is looking to also provide on-campus housing. So a lot of the things that, I've experienced that kept me out of the church was lack of transportation and housing. So if we provide these safe places for people to come, they will be more than willing to help the church continue to function in order to pass on the blessing to someone else.
Right, and and Sierra, you know, as we talk about doing those are things that, you know, we're going to have a large lot. It might be that we can convert part of that land into apartments, and we can but at this point, our biggest challenge is we've got to work with what we have right now. Which is what I was and that's getting you involved with the community college and seeing what we can do on the community college level to bring to connect with those people. That's a big area that we can work on. And the nice part is our new facility is going to be right up the street from the college, and we could probably help with some support there as well. So that's a win-win situation. But as we're going forward, we want to let you know we are being responsible with the building. Tony, we are going to make sure we're doing it well. We don't want to do a poor job of the planning, and that's what we want to do. We want to raise the money. I've been through enough times when it hasn't gone well. So that's what we're going to do with the building process. But at the same time, we want to let you know what the next steps are with that. And so we can communicate that. So any more questions about the building before I move on to my next topic? You sure? Yes, Sandy.
I just want to make a comment about some of the questions that have been asked regarding the kitchen and other things at the new building. And I know we had talked about not building it as large as what we had first anticipated because, you know, we don't have, number one, enough people to fill it for 800 anyway. But, you know, having expandable walls and having to use, you know, having a kitchen built there the way we want it, and then using, and people, I know that not all people are going to agree with this, but until we get the fellowship hall built, that we can use part of the sanctuary for things, that the reason that we are making it expandable is so that as it grows, we can expand out.
Right.
We can have the fellowship hall, we can have the youth center, we can have all of that, but we've got to start somewhere.
Correct.
And that's, you know, if we waited until we could afford all of that, most of us would be dead.
Right. And,
so
yeah.
the point is trying to start out smaller and expanding.
Right. And we have to understand that one of the biggest struggles we had recently was as we're raising money for the new building, some people got upset because we had a dinner in here. And we had a silent auction. You know, it offended some of them because they thought we turned God's house into a house of what do you call it when you're anyways, den of thieves. I don't know how Christ, anyways, but it was nothing like that. And anybody who was here would have seen that it wasn't like that was here for the event. It was very well done. It was very respectful. But here's the struggle is, whether we move to the new site or we stay here, you can't use, if you look at, there's nothing that can go on in this room other than to worship, you're going to have that struggle for years to come. We would have not have existed here if we did not use this building, this room here, for multi-purposes as we grew. Because this is what we had to do. That's what you have to do. So I would love to have a 2,000-seat worship auditorium. See where it says future development? I could see a 2,000-foot 2,000-seat worship auditorium where we get everybody in there, because I believe Bullhead's going to grow that much. I really do. But you know what? That's 20 years from now. I hope I'm still alive when that comes. All right? But until then, we have to realize what makes us holy is the people as we serve God, not the place we're meeting in. But we treat what we're doing as a holy communion, a holy purpose for God. So that's going to be the challenge as we're going forward. And we'll be doing that with the building. So yes, Bert.
There's just one other real quick question. One thing we haven't mentioned or talked about is the value of the place that we're at here. This place is worth somewhere around $1.5 million. You know, so once we get the other building built, are we going to consider putting this on the market to see if the Lord wants to bring a buyer?
Perhaps.
To get a big, get the money to
We
the
don't
new
know, Bert,
place?
because at this point, we can't make any commitments because we just don't know we're gonna.
Right,
But
okay.
that's possible. We could end up selling this place and completing more work on the new site.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
that's all I had.
So we just don't know. I want to let you know, it's not that we haven't thought about that. We just realize we can't say for certain exactly how we're going to do it. But we make this commitment to you. We're doing everything we can to be accountable every step along the way as we're going. We have a treasurer who does a great job, shows everything we have coming in, everything that's spent, all the money that we've been given. We're trying to be good stewards with that money until we use it on the building project. We're trying to get as much interest out of it as we can so we get value from it. We're doing everything we can think of to manage what God has given us as a church. And we're going to keep doing that, including getting things done is for the best price we can get it done. One thing nice about Elon, he likes to make sure he's getting a decent price on things. That's good. All right, I'm a little softer than that, so I have a tendency let's just get it done. But we're moving forward now. So I make this promise to you: we will do our best to communicate that and continue that. We will do our best when we have an area where we want to ask, what are we doing to find out where we're going to reach out to? We're doing all that. I'm trying my best to get involved with community stuff that we can know how we can get involved with people in the community that we can do stuff. We want to do that. We really do. And as your pastor, I'm committed to doing that. But the next thing I want to talk to you about is this idea about the associate pastor. We need an associate pastor. It's not that I don't love what I do, but I realize I'm doing a poor job of it right now because I'm spreading myself so thin trying to do so many different things. I need, my first love is people. Did you guys know that? I love to go and visit people and do things with people, and that's one of the things I love to do. And when I haven't done that, I feel bad because I haven't been doing what I really love to do and see people. The problem is that when you are trying to administrate a church that's growing, you're trying to do all those things that go with it, and that gets tough. We've had some struggles with that. So one of the things we decided about a year and a half ago is to hire an associate pastor. We originally set the salary from $35,000 to $40,000. You would think that's pretty good pay, right? Well, I'm going to get to that in a second. But anyways, so we set that amount, and since then we have increased it to between $40,000 and $50,000, depending on qualifications, because we realize if we're going to get someone of quality, we've got to have that. The problem is most people coming out of seminary don't want to come up to Bullhead City, Arizona. I think it's beautiful here. I really do. I like the area. I've been here. I've got a house here. We're staying. We're not going anywhere. All right. Now I might like to get away for the summer for a month or two. That might be nice. But I'm here and I'm committed to it. So in hiring an associate pastor, we have sent out resumes to several different organizations. We have not gotten hardly any response. As a matter of fact, I resent them again about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got one response. I also got another response from someone who is in our association that and matter of fact, you guys heard him speak today, okay? George, all right? And George has been serving. What we're doing is we're looking at everybody that's applied, and if we can get them in here to hear them, we're going to do what we can. But our problem is there's not a real large pool to gather from. I wish there was. I wish I could find a young man who's 25, 30 years old, who has a heart for the Lord, who doesn't mind making mistakes, that has a family and all that. Yes, Saray, you saying amen to that? No, I have a question. Okay, well let me get to I'll get in a minute. I'm not ready for a question yet. But as we're doing that, we are trying to do everything we can to get that position filled, but I'm not going to rush to get that position filled with just anybody. I want to make sure it's someone that has called, that has a heart, that wants to be here, because in the years to come, that person's going to be expected to do more and reach out in more ways. So that's where we're at with the associate pastor. And I think I had a question on that. Let me see. Basically the question is, when are we going to hire what are our prospects, what are our salaries? We're looking at anywhere from 40 to 50,000 full-time. That would be full-time, yes, all right? If we went down from there, it would probably be anywhere from 35 to 40, depending on the number of hours a week. We're looking at 30 hours per week for a part-time to do that. And like I said, we have the budget, like Tony shared, the budget's increased, so we want to make sure we're managing that well. We have the ability to pay that in our budget. That's part of our budgeted amount, so that's money we've been setting aside and all that. Benefits-wise, we're talking about $5,000 in benefits, which is a very minor amount for health insurance, which it needs to be a lot more, but that's what we're starting with. And also, we are letting them take whatever portion of that for housing allowance, because a pastor has a different status. They're considered self-employed, and they can consider part of their salary as a housing allowance, a lot like military. So we're looking at doing that and negotiating that as well. But we don't have any candidates at this point to do that with.
You mentioned George.
Yes, we mentioned George. Yes, we've actually interviewed George and gone from there, but we wanted to hear him preach, and like I said, so we've got a few people that are meeting together to see if we want to continue on from there. I'd like to have more to compare him to be honest with you.
What's your time frame? I mean, you sure that you need to get somebody within 6 months?
Well, to be honest with you, I'd love to hire somebody in the next month, but I don't want to rush us and make us, because here's the way it works with the pastor. When you hire a pastor, the church basically has to have agreement to hire that pastor, because they're looked at differently than just an hourly employee. They're considered someone who's ordained, and therefore they're ordained staff, and you want to make sure you do it. So that's the biggest challenge, is getting someone who meets those qualifications. George has been ordained already, so that's one of the pluses. But at the same time, we don't want to just jump because he's the only one we have. But like I said, he's a known commodity, and that's where you get, that's where the dilemma comes in. You got a known commodity, you get somebody you don't know, and you don't want to bring someone all the way from, we did have two more. One was from Africa, and the other one was from Peru. But we decided not to move forward on those two, okay? It's a little far ways to go, and I'm sure that, so those are the only three we've actually gotten that actually moved forward on. So that's what we're doing with that position. So questions about that position is what I want to talk about now. So Sierra had her hand up first, and I'll come to you. Yes, Sierra.
So one thing I keep hearing is a man. So from your point of view, can a woman be a pastor?
No.
And why is that? See, I'm a non-denominational Christian,
Right.
so I don't really know how
Right.
a Baptist church functions.
Well, so here's the thing, Sierra. If we were asking for her to be a woman to be a director or a director of a children's program, I would probably have no problem with that. But if you're talking about an associate pastor, someone who's going to be in the role possibly of head pastor, you want to go with what the Bible says about that position. And here's the thing is, there's a lot of disagreement on this right now. Not that women aren't capable, and I hope you guys understand that. I'm not saying that at all. I think a woman can teach a man and show and all those things. I don't have any disagreeing with that. But yeah, so at this point, that would be what we'd be looking at if we were talking about an associate pastor. Yeah.
And where inside of God's word can you point me to where he says that only a man can be a pastor? Because I'm trying to learn. So
Sure,
please don't take this as offense, because I'm very curious, because
Right,
so far within my studying, I haven't seen him look down upon women. And in the Proverbs, he refers to wisdom as a she, a woman. So if anything, God has given women a voice to preach, teach, prophesy, whatever he's anointed them to do. So if you could point me specifically to where he says that.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm talking about the position of a pastor when it talks about that person being a person who's overseeing a church and doing that. You can look in Scripture, I think it's in either 1 or 2 Timothy, where it says that, talks about that is a position, a man in the church to do that. Now, if you look at the Baptist Faith and Message, where it talks about the whole idea of that position, it's in there as well. And it says, but here's what it says, and listen to this. It says, Men and women are both equally capable of teaching that. But then it says, when it talks about the office of a pastor, just that specific office, who's responsible for leading that church, it talks about a man being in that position.
And you said that was 1 Timothy?
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me right now. Yeah, 1 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. So here's my struggle is, that issue of female versus male pastor has come up on the national scene. All right, and here's what I will tell you. We as a church, if we hire someone who is a female, that we hire for children's director, children's ministry, okay? And let me give it, since I don't mean to belabor this, because I know the position of minister. Do you guys understand what a minister is? A minister is someone who is a servant, who is serving and ministering to people. I believe all of us are ministers. And I believe that I can have a female worship minister, okay? I feel like I can have a female children's ministry director. I feel all that. But then when you get to the office of pastor, God has been more specific because that's just the way he said we're supposed to do it. So that's why we're doing it that way. But I don't want to ever discredit or make any woman feel like they're less than what they are, because they're God's gift. We couldn't make it without them. Any of you ladies who go to the women's Bible study know how I feel about you, how important you are. So that's not an issue at all.
Well, Adam was made first.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we could go into that, but also Adam and Eve were equals too. Yeah. So, all right. So we had a question up here. Who had a question up here? Well, okay. All right. Well, if you remember, come back. Ron's got a question right quick.
Does George have a church now?
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Does George have a church now? And does he live in this area?
He lives in Kingman, and he actually he's doing pulpit supply, so he helps out Bruce Cannon with their association when pastors need help because they're going to be gone or stuff like that. Yeah. He actually has a full-time business. He runs a RV repair business. So there's a lot of things that he has to figure out with that, what he's gonna, because it's all actually all in Mojave County. He drives to Mesquite. He fixes air conditioners in RVs and generators and all that. He's a mechanic, so he's been a mechanic for years. So he's been bivocational for a long time. But yeah. So who else had their hand up? Peggy?
I just wanted to ask, seminaries, are they Baptist seminaries or that we're reaching out to?
Yes, we actually,
Okay.
yeah, they're actually Baptist seminaries, yeah.
So someone from a non-denominational,
We would consider someone from a non-denominational background. That's not an issue for us. But we haven't had anybody from a non-denominational background apply or ask.
okay.
And George did go to seminary. He actually has his master's degree, and so there are some pluses to that. But
It's just a comment, really. I sent that statistics to you and Elin a month or so ago. Most of the associate pastors are bivocational for our population-sized church.
right, yeah,
You said under 250,
Right.
like 87% are bivocational.
yeah, yeah, and that's what's nice. He's already got his own. But once again, I'm not trying to endorse George. I wanted to hear him preach because I'd never heard him preach. I've known him for 8 years. I know his character, but I've never. So that's why we wanted to do it. And the team wanted to have a chance to hear more about him, see where his passions lie, and all that. So those are things. Yeah. You want to know those things. Yeah. He's 48. He's a young guy. Yes, Don.
First of all, I'd like to say I enjoyed George's sermon today, and I told him so, and I thought it was very creative with the rope, and
Right.
and that it was good. It was good. I really liked it. It was different, and I enjoyed it. But one of the things that I think that before you approve of an associate pastor, that you should have a, like a social, maybe a potluck, where he gets to meet people
Right.
and such, and before that, I mean, before he's even considered that, because
Correct.
one of the biggest things for a pastor is they have to have the fluidity to fit with people.
Right.
I mean, and that,
Well-
that doesn't always happen.
Well, so Don's bringing up a good point, and that's why we have a search team, okay? And we might end up adding to the search team if we have to. We got about 4 people on the team right now, and it might be a point. So far, we haven't had to review too many applications, so it hasn't been too hard, okay? But you're right. If we all of a sudden got a big flood of them, we would look at them all and go and try to make that decision at some point in time. But yes, we would do that. We would want to do those things because we would want people to get a chance to meet him if we're doing that. And like I said, and it's unusual to have a situation like this where someone we've been looking at is actually in the area and we can actually have a chance to listen to them, see how well they do. Martha would have nailed his feet to the ground because he moved a lot. But those are things we're doing. So I want you to let you know, we're not doing nothing on trying to find somebody. It's just that it's really tough to fill that position.
But it will be the church will approve.
Yes, absolutely, yes, correct. Correct, the church. Yeah, no, it's not the committee. It'll be brought before the church, and the church will know. And that's a good thing. I'm glad you bring that, Tony. When we get to that point, it will be the church who has a chance to listen to him, to meet him, to say yes. Because if I die tomorrow and he's the associate pastor, he's going to be expected to run and lead the church and do that. And you know, Tim was a sweetheart. I love Tim to death, but Tim wasn't ready for that, to be real honest with you. It just wasn't where he was at. But Tim was, I loved Tim. Man, Tim made my job so much easier. I trained him for 4 years, but he's in the perfect place right now, and that's where, but when we get to that point, I promise you it's going to be the whole church deciding on it. Yes, Sandy had her hand up, didn't you? No, okay. All right, Bert?
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Our business meeting is Wednesday, remind everybody.
Let's just say a month or two goes on and we don't get any more candidates for, to come on. Do you think with the committee that they might consider to, I don't know, go with George on a 6 months or a year probationary type period and just see if he would work out about building a youth department here or something like that? I don't know. That's just a thought.
Well, Bert, I can't really tell you other than my feeling is there's some positions that you can't just say. I believe George has the kind of character that if it wasn't working, he would say, hey, it's just not working, I need to leave. That's what I believe about George, just because I've known him from other things. But at the same time, you can't bring somebody in without them having, and ask them to relocate their lives and move and all that without saying, hey, because just like me, I told the whole church a long time ago, and I say it in every new member class, when the day comes when I'm not being effective and I'm causing more difficulties than doing good, that's the day I'm going to hand in my resignation and leave, because I'm not helping anymore. Actually, we had a new members class yesterday, and I said that same thing to them. Because according to our Constitution, it takes 75% of the members to approve the position of hiring a pastor. It's one of the most serious things we do, because that person's got to lead the church and help the church see where they're going. So it's really a tough decision. So we don't know for sure. We might, if George is willing to consider something different, we might look at that. But at this point, you wanted to know where we're at. I wanted you to know that we're not sitting still doing nothing. But at the same time, it's nothing that I can say, this is absolutely what we're doing. We're trying to find the best candidate possible. But unfortunately, like I said, starting salary for full-time is about $55,000 for a full-time pastor starting coming out of seminary. And unfortunately, the other strike we have against us And I don't know why, if they don't want to move up here to Bullhead City because they think it's just this terrible place to live. They don't realize how beautiful this area is. Yeah, yeah. So anyways, so I can't think of anything else on that topic. Anything else on that topic that you had questions about? All right, let me finish with one last one. And this is, I told you, anybody that had questions, they could do it. And the last thing we had is we had a question, and this is on the struggles we're going through right now as a church and some of our recent departures, okay? Of all the people that this bothers the most, it bothers me the most. Because I've invested my life in people, and sometimes I know it goes south because I failed to give the attention I need. Sometimes it goes south because their agenda isn't being met. And sometimes it goes south because God says, I'm going to grow you in a new way. I don't have any answers for that. But someone, so about the recent departures, and I said, why do people leave? Different vision, different beliefs about how the message should be preached or shared from the pastor, disagreements with decision to build and to grow. One of the struggles with this new building is some of them disagreed, and I have done everything I can diplomatically, open, very transparent about why I feel we need to look to move forward. I hope I've done that. I hope I've done that without being mean or rude or insensitive. I tried. I really have. But some people just didn't agree with it. And because of that, they left. When Michael and Olivia Riza said that it was all about money for me, it's not. It's never been about money for me. All right? When I came to this church 21 years ago, I didn't come here because I was going to make a lot of money. I took a $30,000 pay cut to come and become the pastor here because I felt God called me to do that. Over the years, I've done everything I can to raise money, to support this church, to help it, to be faithful in everything I've done. And it's not because I got the money I wanted, it's because I was doing what God called me to do. So sometimes people leave because they just don't agree with where you're going, whether they're building or whatever. And I know that's going to happen. And I do my best. Anybody that's new here, that's coming into the church, knows that one of the things I tell them is, I want you to realize you have a voice in this church as much as anybody else. And I want you to know that your thoughts matter. And I want you to give them. I want you to share them. So I've tried to be that way, but the struggle is sometimes it doesn't matter what we do. Some people just aren't content with that. And I don't know how to fix that. I can't fix that. The struggle has been is sometimes they make decisions. Tony could have quit here 20 years ago. I've been messing up from the first year. All right? Okay? But there were times when Tony and I were on the same side of the card. We were on the same part of the struggle. We did something we thought was for the right thing, doing it for a good thing, and it turned out that we ended up getting criticized and really got, it was a rough time. And it was over something really simple that shouldn't have made that big of a difference. Okay? And as we're doing this new building, we are trying to find creative, biblical, secular ways, but secular ways that aren't offensive biblically. Do you know what I'm saying? In other words, it's like, we made a big mistake with the gun raffle. Okay, we stopped that. Okay, we did some things thinking this is what the world is doing, so we're going to do it. We changed that. Okay, to me, that's an okay thing to start doing something, realize your mistake, confess it, and start doing it different. Does that make sense to you? So we did that with a couple things. But for some people, that was never enough. So what we did is, there's a point where it says, no matter what we do, they're going to be negative towards it or say, it's just not right, you shouldn't do it. And working with people that have been in this church for years, we've tried different things and tried to be very sensitive, very mindful, because we care about the people. We don't want to offend people on purpose. But when we offend people, we expect them to come to us and say, hey, this has offended me. I want to let you know. And we consider what they have. We look at it from a biblical perspective and we say, we're sorry, you're right, this is why we did it, we thought this was going to be fine, and we won't do that again, all right? We'll never do a raffle again with a bottle of wine in it, right, Tony? Was it champagne? Whatever it was, okay? And like I said, this was 16 years ago, all right? So there's some things we won't do again because I'll say, we're not going to do another raffle for a gun, especially an AK-47. I mean, it's whatever that one, AR-15, whatever that was. Anyways, so it tells you how much I know about them. But here's the thing is, we're doing that because we want to be sensitive to not be offensive to our brothers and sisters in Christ and cause them to stumble. So we're going to do that. But even when we've done everything we can, some people are still not going to be happy. And as far as they're concerned, every message I preach is a poor message. Every lesson I teach is a poor lesson. And they're never going to be content because they have this block that I can't overcome. And all I can say to them is, I'm sorry, I wish you the best. God bless you, and go from there. So with that, some people have left. Now, so let me give the question, and I'll get to you, Don, since you had your hand up first. So someone said, and this is a question they had, how do we deal with people that have left the church and are trying to recruit people to leave? That's offensive to me. If you want to leave, that's okay, but if you're trying to recruit people to leave with you, I think that's wrong. I would hope that you would say to them, hey, if that's what you're here for, you don't need to be here anymore. And then one of the comments was, if you want a political church, stay here. If you want a biblical church, go where we're going. So in other words, somehow we're political as a church. Now, my struggle is, I don't know how we're political as a church. Now, if they want to say we're trying to be politically correct, I can probably see and maybe understand what they're saying. But if anything, you guys don't give me a chance to be, to do that. You guys are too rough on me to begin with. All right? So, if I do something wrong, you guys are willing to tell me. I mean, I think we're blessed as a church to be able to be open with one another about those things. So I don't know how to fix that other than to say, I wish you the best. I'm sorry the disagreement came up. If one day you don't feel that way and you want to return and you can leave that behind, then that's fine. Come back. Huh?
We've had that happen many times.
Yeah. Correct. Right. And I welcome them back because I don't hold that against them because they, whatever the issue was, it's been resolved. So Don had his hand up. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the things, I don't know if you remember when we first started talking about buying land and such, many people are concerned that we're going to grow into a mega church, and the thing is, the fear of that is that we're going to become, so I don't know who's over there, and I don't know this person on that side. We have an intimacy through our church. We're all
Right.
brothers and sisters, and we all love each other. And we kind of fear for losing that intimacy, that once it grows into a big crowd, you're just one of the multitudes. And I think that it has a lot to do with what's going on with a lot of the things. It's because the fear of losing the intimacy that we have in this church.
We have a couple ladies in our church that feel that way, and they say, I really like it the way it is. Now, here's the problem. I like it the way it is, too, but it doesn't mean that I can say that I'm not going to listen to what God's putting before us if we do that, and that's the struggle.
Like I said, I'm for the church growing in it. I'm not saying again, but I'm just telling you the way I see it as far as a part of the friction is this thing from being where we know everybody to where we're going to be one of the many.
Yeah, and a lot of churches combat that by having small groups and and we're going to try to do all those things.
But there is ways. I'm just.
But you're right.
pointing
That's
that
part
out
of it
as
is
an
they
issue.
fear that somehow it's going to be lost. All right, Miss Tony over there, pass that to her if you want. Oh, here, I'll get her.
We've had that happen here already. When we had this church, we had like 40 people, 50 people, and we were so close. I mean, we knew everybody. We knew if they were sick or whatever. Then when the two churches in town split, they all came here, and we ended up with 140 people. All of a sudden, we didn't know anybody. And I've had a struggle with this for a long time. We do have 2 services, what makes a big difference. But I feel like we have lost that intimacy. And that's something I've been struggling with. And I think that maybe we need to have somebody that's like, I don't know, a coordinator or something, that if there's a problem, it's one person they can go to, and then that person can help delegate or whatever they need to do. Because I think a lot of people right now don't know who they can go to if they have an issue. And I don't want to put them down, but I don't see much happening with the deacons. You have to have a relationship, and I think a lot of that fault is ours as members. We are not reaching out to people that we don't know. I'm at fault too. I've got so much going at home right now that I've just kind of backed off of everything. I used to do a lot of things. I used to do the movie night to bring people in, the videos, the video library, so people would have things. I used to do a monthly party that was themed to bring people in. All those things got shut down. And so, but we need to reach out. We need to say, hey, let's go to lunch or do something, because we have lost that. We come to church and then we leave. It used to be we had a group. We'd have anywhere from 10 to 20 people go out to lunch after church, and we became close. Well, finally they started dropping off, and so we don't do that anymore. But we're the ones at fault of why we lost the intimacy, and we need to think about that. We need to start saying, hey, I know your name, but let's go to lunch and get to know each other. So,
yeah. And the
just
neat
some
thing
thoughts.
is I've heard of groups in the church that are doing that. Like I know Joyce and Diane and Roberta, but they got like a group of about 5 ladies go out every week for lunch.
We call ourselves a church group, but they know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so that we just need to keep building upon that and not limit that to that, so we can do that. And maybe that's where they feel they don't belong. I'm not 100% sure. But here's the thing is, I will give everybody an opportunity to voice their struggle, their concern, any way I can. But it's for the purpose of resolving things and working together, not just so that you can complain. See you, Lee. Bye, Nancy. We love you. We see them every week. They're one of the couples that have become part of the family, so to speak. So we need to keep doing that so that we keep doing it. But once again, if you're unhappy and you just want everybody to know you're unhappy, it's just a matter of waiting until you're leaving, and then it's like, we should be happy. We should be joyful. So yes. Did you have a question, Peggy?
I was just going to comment that you're only one person. And I think people expect you to be everywhere. Only God is everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the women's fellowship, the men's breakfast, the men's Bible studies. We have the Bible studies, and we have Touchstone Angels. We do have the deacons, but, you know, people expect you to call them or you to go visit them, and maybe there is a communication disconnect.
Right.
But we have all of these people.
Right.
You know, and don't sit in the nail parlor and gossip.
Right. Well, and just to let you know, I will tell you this. What I do when we have new people that come into the church, I will give them extra attention on purpose. Like Sierra, I know Anthony, I know Sarai. That's her 2 kids. We've had a chance to talk. So when she was talking, I know where she's come from because I've spent time talking with her, and I know where her heart's at. When new people come into the church, one of the things I do is I try to find a place for them to fit, where they can belong, where they can be a part. The problem is at some point in time, I have to disconnect from that and let them develop relationships with those other people. And it is hard. But we do have things in our church that help us gather those, like we have Touchstone's Angels. Three of our 6 deacons are here tonight. So just to let you know that. So the deacons are trying to participate and do things. The problem is, like I said, is sometimes, Tony, like I said, we just don't connect. We don't connect enough, and that's where it's hard. So, Susan, do you have a question?
So have we lost a significant amount of people, or, I mean, have a significant amount of people? Has a handful left? Has 2 handfuls left?
Well, if I was going to, I would say 2 handfuls maybe, all right? And like I said, some of them left. And here's the thing is, I want to let you know this. I have talked to every one of them, either by communicating with an email, depending on how they wrote to me. If they wrote me a letter and it's best just to say, thank you for your letter, God bless you, I left it at that. Because I don't want to cause more strife. But at the same time, if there's somebody I've heard that isn't coming, I'm going to them and say, okay, what's going on? Tell me what went wrong. Because I want to know. I mean, okay, tell me how I messed up. I'm willing to listen to that. All right? I'm not perfect as a pastor, but at the same time, I'll say, okay, what do you want to do about it? And if their answer is, I don't care, I'm leaving. That's okay, well, I wish you the best. And that's what you have to do. But then when you hear them talking to someone and spreading poison in their ear, that's where you got to step up and say, listen, if that's what you're here for, don't come. Because I don't care if it's someone that's teaching a Bible study, I don't care what they're doing, we don't want to put up with that. Yeah. Yes, Miss Sandy.
Okay, I do have just a couple of things to say, and that is the deacons are doing a lot. And I know my husband, who's a deacon, he texts his people, he emails his people, he sends cards to his people, and he doesn't get a lot of response from the people. That's the problem. And I'm an angel, and I will have to admit, I do not do as much as I should and stay in contact as much as I should, but I do send cards, I do call, and I don't get any response either. And I tell them in the cards, please call me if you need prayer. Please call me if I can help you with anything. And I just found out that one, and I'm not going to say names, but I just found out that somebody had some heart issues probably a month ago. I didn't know anything about it. And they're one of my people that I send cards to and that I call and talk to. If people in the church don't let us know what their problems are, we can't help.
Right. And here's the thing is, I want you to know that we don't want to worry. My first response is always going to be, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I might follow it up with saying, I wish you would have called me and told me. Because I said that to some of the people that left. I got calls about things, about how I was preaching and what this is all I was, and I said, gee, I didn't know I was doing that. I did the whole book of Ezra only to raise money for the church. And I'm thinking, man, I got so much out of the book of Ezra that had so little to do with building the new church. I got tons out of it about how we're supposed to respond, how we're supposed to act. But to their eyes, it was only, you just did that so you could raise money for the church. Now, I did do it to make a point about, hey, this is how we want to raise money for the church. But once again, I decided I wasn't going to take offense at that, because I just said, well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you took it that way. And I think Tony's got a point that sometimes we have to be willing to say, okay, I know they care, I just got to take the time to reach out and tell them. And I don't want, because I work with our deacons all the time, I don't want anybody to feel they got to defend themselves or whatever. I just want us to realize that talking and saying how we feel, and I've done this. I like counseling. That's another one of the things I like doing. When I counsel people, I try to make them realize that sometimes it's not a matter of saying you did this wrong. It's a matter, this is how I feel. Okay, because Sandy, you're doing all these things, and I know how it makes you feel when you don't get a response. Because you work with a lot of people and you do a lot of things with the kids, and I appreciate it, and there's so many. But once again, it makes you feel this way, but the problem is on the other side, we got people who are hurting and they just don't know how to ask for help. So we want to be a church that says, I'm sorry you feel that way, how can I help? All right, or what can I do different to make it so that you know that you matter? And that's the challenge, it really is. So, Bert?
Well, yeah, well, I sort of got a question. You know, I'm one of the deacons. I see a lot of my people that I have on Sunday, the ones I have that go Saturday night, I go up to them and talk to them when I'm here on Saturdays. I had a couple that had some surgery. Trish and I went with them up to Vegas for the surgery. But Tony had mentioned, and I'm not offended, Tony, in any way, I love you, that she don't see much out of the deacons doing much. A question, what can we do better? You know, so, because we're not perfect. We're just servants, and what can, and this question is for everyone in this room, what can we do better? So anyway, that's my question.
I think you have to build a relationship with your people. If I don't, you know, I have a deacon, and I've met him twice here at church, real quick, but I don't have a relationship with him. So I don't know if I could share what's going on at my house with somebody I don't know. That's hard.
Right.
You know, and then, can you trust them? Can they keep their mouth shut? That's another thing. That's an issue we've had in this church too. You may share it with somebody and then you find out it's all over the church. So you tend to close yourself off, you know, and I know, like with Lee, with some of the problems she's had, nobody ever calls her to see how she's doing. Whatever, right now, Louise feels like she's a stranger in the church again, and she doesn't feel real comfortable right now. It's just, again, we have to build the relationships. And once you can do that and you get to know somebody, then you can share, you know, and you feel more comfortable with it. So that's just what I'm saying is I don't see people reaching out. And to, you know, I had a Touchstone angel. I just loved her. She called me at least once a month, sent me cards, but she talked with me. We got to know each other. It wasn't just, you know, can I pray for you? You know, and that's it, you know. We built a relationship just with her being a Touchstone angel. And still, she wasn't my Touchstone angel anymore, but she was still calling me once a month. She said, I'm not your angel anymore, but I still want to know what you're doing. So that shows that people really care and that you can trust them. So that's just what I'm saying is, and I'm at fault too, okay? And I'm trying to help Lee and Louise right now because they're kind of on their own, they're older, you know, and I love them dearly. So I make the extra effort, and sometimes that's just what we need to do.
So Tony is being an angel, so we need to recruit her as an angel because she's already angeling people anyway.
What I'm hearing, people want the deacons to come to their home and visit with them more often and sit down with them. Is that?
Well, here's the thing is Tony and I talk because we've known each other for years, and there's times when I get busy and I ignore her, and I can tell that she knows that. But I also realize because we have a friendship, we work through that and we catch up. And that's what we all have to do. And here's the key, not take offense. That is the hardest thing as we work through these things as a church. Because new people come in, and if we don't let them share how they feel without taking offense, guess what? They're not going to share with us again, and they're not going to be part of things. So that's the biggest challenge. Joyce.
Well, I was thinking just to make people, when they get assigned a deacon, comfortable with, here's a list of deacons. If there is someone else you'd rather have as a deacon.
And we do that.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, I've got a fabulous deacon, but if I hadn't, I'd like to feel free to pick someone else.
Right, yes, we do,
That makes
yeah.
me feel comfortable.
All right, anybody else have a question? I don't wanna go on for all night. Anybody have any more questions? Don, did you have a question you want to say or not?
I just said that I didn't know who my deacon was.
Now, that's where the wife knows, but the husband doesn't. That's not uncommon, okay?
That has happened, where one guy said, I didn't know you were my angel.
Yeah.
I didn't know this, and I said, well, I talk to Jerry all the time. Oh, well, she never tells me. So a lot of husband and wife
Oh,
don't
yes, I tell you,
communicate.
husbands can get in trouble more that way than any other way I know, okay? All right, any other questions? So, if this is good, maybe we can plan on doing something like this once every 6 months, once every 3 months. You guys, how often would you want to continue to do something like this?
Yeah, I think this is great because I have felt like everything going on with the building has been kept secret. You know, you'd see a thing hanging out there, but nobody's talking about it, And for you to do this was wonderful because we were able to voice our opinions, our concerns, get the information that we need as a church. We're part of the church,
Right.
not just, the committee that's doing it. So we need this as a church to be able to come together like this and really be kept informed of what's going on. So I thank you very much for
All right, good.
putting your butt out there because I know you were probably dreading it.
Yeah.
But I don't think we did so bad.
Yeah, yeah.
I think certainly more often than every 6 months, maybe more often than every 3 months quarterly. So it must stop a lot of this.
Okay, quarterly, well, all right, so I'll look at a date and we'll set it up at this. Now, here's another sweetheart with the church, Diane Dale, who was a church secretary for how many years?
13.
13.
14 years.
So she worked in the church and she saw that, and you can talk to Kay and anyone else, they know what it's like to be there. So what do you want to say?
I was just going to say that there are AST meetings every month, and maybe not everyone knows this, but we're all invited to be there to observe and listen. And isn't that a good way to find out what's going on?
AST meetings help and they're good, but sometimes those can drag on too. So you got to be careful. And here's our struggle is, I will tell you this again, we have a missions team, we have like 4 or 5 teams that meet either every month or every other month. And what you do is you just pick the one you want to be involved with and you go there. That's just really a great way to do it. So the more you go to meetings, stuff like that help. But we will plan one 3 months from now, which makes it, I'll look at the calendar. I'll figure it out and we'll do it. And Sunday afternoon is good. Is this a good time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yes? Yes, there's a business meeting on Wednesday.
6 o'clock.
Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Wednesday, 6 o'clock. The 29th, 6 o'clock, yeah. We do it a little bit earlier than the Bible study, so we can still do the Bible study. Eleanor. You've already got a new angel. No, you haven't.
We're meeting September, and all the ones that she has.
She had more than one?
Oh yeah, we have like 18. I have 18.
more than one angel.
Yes.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, I have 18. Because we only have a few people who lost a lot of the angel. So we have to distribute it, those people amongst the ones we have. And we'll be meeting in September and we'll get that done at that time.
Okay.
I might be going to Wisconsin sometime in September, so what if I miss it?
Don't worry, we'll call her.
We'll get you. Call me.
Yes, Patrick.
No, I was going to say, if you're gone away, this was streaming tonight. So we had people online.
Yeah. All right. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I thank you for listening to me. I thank you that you let me share my heart. It helps because when I go through times like this, it's like, now, Lord, why am I doing this? Because it does get stressful. And I will continue to do my best to let people know what's going on and talk with people as they're open. But there's some things I'm not going to put up with. People have their opinion, but their opinion is not to try and tear this church down. If you're not saying it because you care about the place, then it's best you just don't say it at all. Now, I'm not trying to be harsh. I know it sounds bad when you say it that way, but I'm trying to say, you guys have invested your life, you invested your resources, you invest your time in this church, and I want to do my best to make sure it makes a difference for the kingdom. And that means whether you've been here a year, 10 years, or 20 years, we're all doing this for the same purpose. We want to reach others. And that was one thing really that I appreciated about the message today. George shared, we've only got so much time. Yeah. And when we get caught up in the bickering and the arguing and all those things, we are wasting time to share that message that God's given us. So let's not waste that time. All right? All right, thank you. Let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for letting us meet together, and I thank you for everyone sharing. I thank you for everyone sharing their heart and how you've been working on it. I thank you for the openness and the honesty, for the willingness to look at things and get a better picture of them. So Lord, help us as a church to just go forward and have the right heart as we move forward, serving you and making a difference in the lives of people that you put around us. And we just praise and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a good night. We'll see you before you know it. Huh?